So first, thank you all for joining us tonight and staying on Zoom for 2 hours. I know everyone's kind of stuck at home anyway, but it's still a really long time to be on Zoom. And I really appreciate everybody coming to complain with us tonight. Before we get into this presentation, I wanted to be able to introduce myself and all of the speakers tonight. So first we have James Turner. James Turner is an IT security engineer and software developer with 20 years of experience delivering solutions to the industry. His primary focus of expertise is data encryption and identity management. He has provided quality support and solutions to multiple government agencies and large corporations. In the past 2 decades, James has become a subject matter expert in public key infrastructure, identity management, and augmented reality. James is also a board member of GreenAid and the Ethical Data Alliance. Dr. Rachel Knox is a certified cannabinoid medicine specialist and clinical endocrinologist with a background in family, integrative, and functional medicine. Along with her family, she founded Doctors Knox Inc., the American Cannabinoid Clinics, and Advent Academy. Dr. Knox is a policy and regulatory consultant on cannabis health equity, and her commitment to reform extends into educating communities of color about the role cannabis can play in addressing the minority health disparity gap and the broader way that cannabis can impact the total well-being of these communities through creating health equity. Dr. Knox is the chair of the Oregon Cannabis Commission, member of Portland's Cannabis Policy Oversight Team, board member of Doctors for Cannabis Regulation, board member of the Minority Cannabis Business Association, advisory board member of the American Academy of Cannabinoid Medicine, co-founder and president of the Cannabis Health Equity Movement, and board member for New Leaf Project PDX. Dr. Dale Hunt is a plant scientist, a cannabis lawyer, and registered U.S. patent attorney with over 20 years of experience protecting plant varieties in the United States and throughout the world. Dale is the founder of Plant and Planet Law Firm, which has been a big sponsor of getting EDA up this year, an intellectual property law practice where he provides guidance and expertise on patents and IP matters and aids clients in establishing IP protection for their legal marijuana cultivars, products, and businesses. Before he began working in the legal cannabis industry, Dale worked with other clients in agriculture, water purification, alternative energies, biotechnology, medicine, manufacturing processes, and natural formulations. And he's helped many of his clients commercialize their IP, products, and plant varieties in over 30 countries. Christian Saucier is the founder and principal consultant of CryptoTech.guru. He has over 2 decades of global consulting experience and a network of expert resources to help communities, organizations, and industries that manage the disruptive potential of P2P technology. Christian's solutions have been featured at global institutions including MIT, Columbia, Bloomberg, RT, Forbes, and numerous public media outlets. Christian is also the blockchain designer behind medicinal genomics Cannapedia, and he's created similar technology to what we're about to present today in the food industry. And most of you know me because I invited you tonight. I'm Angela Baca. I've been editing and writing books, articles, and other media content in the cannabis industry for over 13 years. And I've specialized in content covering cultivation, medicine, economics, business, and culture. So as I mentioned earlier tonight, the story of the Ethical Data Alliance kind of begins with the end of the Open Cannabis Project. And I joined the board of the Open Cannabis Project in February 2019, and 3 months later, I played a huge role in shutting it down. The Open Cannabis Project was started by Phylos Bioscience in order to open source cannabis genetic data in an attempt to preempt patent trolls and protect the IP rights of legacy cannabis breeders as the industry moves above ground. And as I'm sure everyone on this call remembers, last April, a video leaked online of Phylos' founder pitching big business investors a breeding program built on this market-defining collection of genetic data. Because the trust to share those genetics with Phylos was earned through the goodwill of the nonprofit Open Cannabis Project, we knew we had to shut it down. We convened a meeting of the board and voted unanimously to put it to bed the following month because trust had been irreparably broken. So the end of the Open Cannabis Project was the beginning of what would become the Ethical Data Alliance. As OCP was sunsetting, Executive Director Beth Schechter, Rosie Wolf, and I had a lot of conversations about the goals we still have of collective cannabis genomic research, IP protection, not just for the West Coast legacy breeders, but also the communities who nurtured the landrace varieties they were bred from, a fair and equitable industry, and bringing about economic and environmental sustainability through small farming and targeted regional breeding. We knew that no organization or community should rely on for-profit companies to achieve these goals, but we did realize that the key was building trust through explicitly shared and stated ethics. So what does the Ethical Data Alliance do? Since early 2020, we have evolved into a large collection of breeders, growers, researchers, doctors, lawyers, patients, and supply chain data collectors that are all working to create a blockchain network, and I know that that's going to be the confusing part, with decentralized governance. We're calling it the Ethical Data Exchange Network, or EDEN. The EDA has been established as a project of the 501c3 nonprofit organization GreenAid, the Medical Marijuana Legal Defense and Education Fund, which is Ed Rosenthal's nonprofit that was started in 2002 for his trial and for which the Festivus tradition has come from. EDA is working to establish Eden and maintain the shared ethical statement and smart contract for data generators to sign in order to ensure the trust in data, in sharing data amongst each other, as well as contribute research to a data pool that can be monetized to support the operations of the nonprofit and to promote shared knowledge that leads to better research and regulations and outcomes. So before we get into like how this works, it's really important to talk about the ethics at the heart of what we're doing. Before we could possibly design a network that's going to encourage a community full of people who don't trust each other to share and learn together, our collective focus most of this year has been on what we believe to be the shared ethical values in the broader community so that we can start from a place of trust and security. So our shared ethics include: one, data generators are data owners with autonomy over how their data is used and monetized. Two, data information and technology should be primarily utilized to repair the earth and our relationship with it. The EDA shall encourage and preserve genetic diversity of all species, as well as the ecosystems and microbiomes in which they live. 3, the EDA shall promote the reparation of disparity with parity wherever possible. 4, the EDA prioritizes ethics and sustainability over profit and encourages sustainable localized economies. 5, the EDA seeks to promote the healing and amending of the spiritual collateral damage from the war on drugs. So while as an organization, the EDA is going to have the largest role in the development of Eden, we will not have a monopoly over it. We expect and encourage to be one of many organizations that serves this role on the network, because the very nature of this network is that it's owned by everyone and no one. So on that note, I'm going to hand it off to Christian, who's going to tell you a little bit more about the Eden network and the process we're undergoing to build it.
Thank you, Angela. It's an honor to be with you all here. I've been in the cannabis. I've been a cannabis consumer all my life, and now in the business of it, only for a few years since I worked on Cannapedia out there with Kevin. But today we're here to talk about the Ethical Data Exchange Network. And so it's a network where we can exchange information in an ethical fashion. The key to understanding what we have here is that instead of creating a pool where everybody puts the data and then the pool get robbed, everybody keeps their data, and we're creating a language where everybody can then peer to peer, so one to one, say, hey, I've got this data, do you want it? Or I'm looking for this data, who's got it? And a little more like the World Wide Web, now it's not a single database. The data is a little bit everywhere, and yet it's available. So what we're going to see here, and that's is Eden provides four sets of services, if you will, and by necessity, because we want this to be an open marketplace, these services are built using what's known as open source software. It's a type of free software essentially where the code is readable. Most of the internet runs on such free software. The companies often steal it and claim it for their own, but the free software moves on. And so this is an implementation of that. Except this time, because it's got that blockchain behind it, the companies can steal it because the data is not in one place. It's everywhere, and it's with the owners. So there's four aspects to it, and the first one, the data notary, is to establish, well, who is the owner of the data? right? Who and in a system like this, it's very simple. It's the person who creates the data. So I call that here technically a notary protocol, right? So if as you're creating data, right, in your nursery or at your farm, you can notarize it privately. Nobody else needs to know it. It's now a service that's available to you with computer technology, where you can record your data and prove that what you've been doing, your technique or your process or the change you're doing in order to reach a goal. So what Eden allows is for the data producers to privately within their own enterprise record what they're doing to the plant and the product over the supply. And so that's going to help us, as we're going to see, trace the provenance if they allow that data to be shared, and also prove the ownership when they come out and say, look, I had it already recorded here. So that's just the first step. Record the data that you have privately and securely. The second step is to then catalog the data you want to share. Now that you're recording all sorts of things about your process, which ones of those do you think would be useful to others in the world, and which ones of those are you willing to part with, and under what conditions? So that's a catalog. So we need tools. The tools don't exist today to make this easy. There's a lot of e-commerce tools, but the e-commerce tool, again, you got to centralize that data. So here we're just going to provide a way for you to catalog the data and make it available on a website or on your website. The third step, now that we've got catalogs and we know how the data can be exchanged, and we can always, through the first step, the notarization, prove back to its origin. The third step is to provide a way to exchange the data with others. And again, the sprinkle secret sauce of blockchain here is that that exchange can happen peer to peer, meaning there's nobody else between me and you. If you're interested in the data that you saw published on my catalog, you can now knock on my digital door, and we can trade information privately between me and you. I don't see here the slides moving. Oh, there we go. Data exchange is what we just talked about. I'm sorry, Angela, I'm a little fast. And then once we have exchange going between peers, the fourth part of the protocol, Angela, if you move to the next one, is a quality measurement. Because obviously the quality producers now are recognized, right? You guys know them. Well, it's many of you here on this call. And there's a network. The quality producers know the quality producers. And again, if that information is desired to be shared, and it usually is by quality producers, that quality will come up on the network and you'll be able to see it visually or algorithmically so that you can search for it. I'm looking for a person that can transform my product into the next step with these parameters. This is what I'm looking for. And you'll be able to find on a network like this catalogs of other providers that will be able to prove their prior art, if you will, through all of the network that we've described so far. All right. So that's a lot of talk. That's a lot of words. The real way to really get this home and really convince and make an impact is with proof. So what we're doing is breaking these four steps into four different pilots. We've started the first pilot over this past number of months. We have the organizations that you see involved here on the screen sharing data across the supply chain. And our first pilot is oriented towards that first step, the notarization of information, which enables that supply chain traceability. So the goals of the first pilot is to demonstrate data provenance and product provenance in a provable way. So if the product came from Oregon or if it came from China. And that is why we're using the Chroma Signet technology that you see there. You might be familiar with Hendrix and Canopedia, that are two players already in the space. Canopedia also uses blockchain technology to protect their data, and that's the Dash network. So we're tying all that together, and we're going to bring on a smartphone app the ability for a consumer at the end of the supply chain to look and browse the information about the product that was delivered to them. So that's pilot one. We do that with notarization. So far there's very little data exchange, or the data is assumed to be just public data that is just available. The second pilot that we have lined up, 6 months after we finish the first one, we need to document the first one and present it properly. So that there's still a lot of work going on there. This next pilot will be 6 months later, which will test the data catalog capabilities. So structuring and organizing the data so it can be searched. If you're a researcher in Australia, if you're a lab in America, or if you're a certifying agency in Europe, and you're looking for various information on this network, it has to be structured in ways that can be searched. And that's what the next pilot will do. And you see here the goals that are associated with it. Third pilot is the exchange and enabling two players on the network to say, hey, hi, my name is Christian. I would like to purchase the data here. Or, hey, I just smoked, the greatest weed. I would like to tip the farmer $1.50, or spread my tip across a supply chain of people who produce this thing I'm using. So that kind of exchange of value and information requires a marketplace, obviously. So we need an open marketplace where that data can be seen and to be proven that it has not been modified by any third party. These exchanges are private between peers on the network. And the fourth pilot that we mentioned earlier will bring in quality. Right, quality is really what we're after, and that's kind of the holy grail, if you will. Is being able to measure quality. And we have member organizations already within the EDA that are already ready for it, right? Hey, here's a way to measure quality. Here's another way to measure quality. How do we make this available to the grand public so the grand public can know the quality too? And so the fourth pilot will be oriented towards these goals. So hopefully these actions will show what we're all about, and that this technology is real. And to tell us about real impacts, now we're going to talk to Dale, who can tell us a bit about the impact of this from an IP perspective. Thanks, Dale.
Well, thank you, Christian, and thanks everyone for being here. Uh, as I was thinking about what to say, I thought about the um, the statement that Isaac Newton made when he was getting all kinds of credit for great insights that changed physics. He said, "I saw farther because I stood on the shoulders of giants." And I think we can all acknowledge that this thing that has become an industry started as a community, and that it really does now stand on the shoulders of giants. And the thing that has become a cause for me and my law firm and my company is helping many of these giants and their successors in that great work um, get the recognition and the seat at the table that they richly deserve. And who am I talking about? I'm talking about the breeders that have been instrumental, or really the driving force, in creating the cultivars or the strains that everyone loves to use, and uh, caretaking of the land races, gathering and documenting the land races from all over the world. These are great contributors, truly the giants of our community and our industry, and many of them have never really gotten any meaningful recognition or any meaningful compensation for their life's work. Their goal has really just been a matter of survival, staying out of the clutches of the federal law enforcement, and just continuing to be able to support the passion that they have for plant breeding. The thing that I'm so excited about, and with respect to the Ethical Data Alliance, is that among the many things that this effort and organization will achieve, it will really has the potential to change the equation for many independent plant breeders, as well as small farms, family farms, small growers, and give them a seat at the table before it is completely monopolized by big ag. So let's talk about the problem. As we know, when we talk about cannabis genetics, we all have to use some kind of names, and it's common knowledge that sometimes if you can have a given cultivar or strain, some genetics that might go by all kinds of different names. And in other cases, you might have a name that applies to all kinds of different genetics. There's no meaningful consistency in our current nomenclature. Um, And in addition, we all know that even if you have the same genetics and you can document that you have the same genetics, when a particular cultivar, a particular genotype is grown in the hands of different growers in different conditions, you can end up with significantly different chemotypes. And so what the industry seriously lacks right now, we're all kind of feeling around in the dark to try to get any kind of clarity if we want to be able to have a consistent product or a meaningful way of going into a dispensary and asking for something and getting what it is we're asking for. There's got to be some kind of a new standardization, a new way of getting clarity about what all of this diversity actually means, and when we have diversity and when we don't. And so um, using the protocols, the Eden protocol, and taking advantage of the Ethical Data Alliance, individual breeders and independent growers and small farms will be able to put their data in about a particular genetic selection, trace it all the way through the supply chain from breeder to grower to manufacturer, well, breeder to nursery to grower to manufacturer, and on to the consumer. And along the way, there will be complete clarity about, okay, this genetic selection turned into this this clone turned into this cultivar grown under these conditions on this farm, and on and on. And this will has the potential at least to erase the ambiguity that is causing um, so many problems for everyone along the supply chain. And of course, one of the other great benefits is that it will lead to traceable recognition to the work of these tremendous breeders who have contributed so much to this community and to this industry, as well as having ways of that traceability will greatly facilitate their payment for any kinds of license royalties if they choose to protect or commercialize or license their IP. They'll have the opportunity of getting paid for that. And if anyone has the right to get paid for it, they do. I just want to say I have visited many breeders. I've been on their farms. I've sat at their tables. I've talked to them about their frustrations and their challenges. And I really believe that the Ethical Data Alliance has the potential to really help them have a better way of life and to get compensated and recognized for their tremendous contributions. In addition, this will really help the small and independent grower, as well as any grower in the supply chain, because they will be able to begin to correlate their growing practices with the outcomes, to correlate the genetics that constitute the input, the growing practices that affect the expression of the genetics, and then the outcome in terms of the quality of the product, in terms of the user experience. And without some easy way of sharing all of this information and all of these data, this would still be a kind of an impenetrable black box, which is what we're all experiencing right now. So I just want to strongly endorse the importance of this. I think it really revolutionizes every step in the supply chain to the great benefit of a lot of individuals, individual consumers, individual breeders, individual growers. And this is the way that that this industry and this community and this cause can not be completely swept away by big ag. And for more on the patient orientation of this and the benefits to patients, I will hand it off to Dr. Rachel Knox.
Thank you, Dale. And yes, I will discuss also the benefits to medical doctors and health and medical providers more broadly, like myself. So you all know that pharmaceutical cannabinoid drugs, right? Drugs that doctors like me can prescribe with confidence to patients are here. There'll be more coming. And this poses a challenge to our home growers and cannabis retailers who respectively and honorably supply themselves, their neighbors, and their customers with high quality whole plant and whole plant derived products. And that's something that we absolutely must protect because I look forward to a future where doctors everywhere can and will discuss with patients their options, which must include homegrown cannabis and retail cannabis and cannabinoid products right alongside pharmaceutical cannabinoid drugs. Now, I already know, as many of you know, that I know that it's my job to understand cannabis in all of these forms because my patients may use any variety of them, but this is the reality. You all know this well. many doctors are just not comfortable discussing or managing patients on homegrown or retail cannabis, and will likely prefer, quite honestly, and trust most, and more quickly adopt even pharmaceutical cannabinoid drugs. But we can get them there. That's been one of the mantles that I've carried for so long, educating my peers and helping them grow more comfortable with plant medicine. But then there's patients on the other hand, right? Not all heritage patients are growers, but they are growing increasingly aware of the medicinal nature of cannabis and the legality of medical use, but often lack the understanding, the confidence, or patience to learn what works best for them and their medical condition. And this is a problem in today's cannabis industrial ecosystem, right? It's a market, unfortunately, that diminishes the value of home grows, and that is growing increasingly saturated with products, but lacking in both accurate and consistent information and health and medical professional confidence. Our patients are relying on Dr. Google to figure out what to buy and how to use it, but Google is not prescriptive. And this leaves our patients forced to navigate a trial and error process, which can be expensive, frustrating, and oftentimes demoralizing. You know, I've had patients quit cannabis because they just couldn't figure it out. Then other patients are just buying what's available, although what's available is not usually formulated according to science or research or specific to the ailment that they are wanting to treat. And in the hemp CBD space, right, the lack of regulation entirely negatively impacts quality control when patients need to be able to trust that products are exactly what they say they are. Now, doctors, again, on the other hand, even those who understand and promote established science and research, we're hesitant to hang our hats on clinical evidence that's disproportionately anecdotal. Compound this with a saturated market of competing brands that lack the precision warranted to meet clinical needs. And honestly, again, the marketplace where product consistency isn't guaranteed, it becomes really difficult for clinicians to trust the cannabis industry for their patients. And the quality issues of the CBD space, again, especially minimizes professional confidence in product safety. So to compete with pharma, right, the bigs, our cannabis industry needs to tighten up, and Eden is the solution. I like to say that Eden is the wrench. Seed to solution tracking and testing transparency coupled with quality validation will absolutely increase patient and provider confidence that products consistently meet quality standards, right? This would also increase confidence that the industry itself prioritizes these things, quality and safety being paramount. This solution also turns anecdote into clinical and public health data when consumers, both patients and personal users alike, share their experiences and outcomes on their own terms, right? They get to own their information. They share that information at their will. And then in exchange, this information will identify local varietal needs and inform a chemical profile or chemotype and manufacturing trends. This will drive better retail products and better patient outcomes. This data will also direct and advance clinical and public health research priorities. It will impact clinical counsel and management. It'll make me do my job better. It will also improve patient navigation. It will literally connect end users to the life cycle of their products, and transparency. The need for transparency is growing increasingly important to our growing community of intelligent users. So, we have to bring the right infrastructure to the cannabis industrial ecosystem in order to extract this holistic value that we're talking about today. I really do argue that our industry's survival, right, as a place where both patients and adults alike can source safe and consistently efficacious products, is at risk without this type of a solution. A more sophisticated market can and will compete with big ag and big tobacco and big CPG and big pharma, but we have to work to get it there, right? We won't get there with metric. I know you all know that. So it's time we build the right alternative that allows us to leverage data and technology to serve both our regulatory and health needs. So with that, I am happy to turn the mic over to James Turner.
Good evening, everybody. Happy Festus. My entire career has been dedicated to securing access to data and ensuring the integrity of that data. With a life so intermingled with data, I have developed a unique perspective on the power of data and how that power can be wielded. One of the initiatives of the EDA is to use data to advocate for equity in this industry. Now, the terms equality and equity are often used interchangeably. However, they differ in important ways. Equality typically defines as treating everyone as the same and giving everyone access to the same opportunities. Meanwhile, equity refers to proportional representation. As this industry continues to grow and develop, we want to ensure that equity is built into the fabric of its commerce. With legalization becoming more and more widely adopted and new businesses being formed, the Eden Network provides a place for data transparency. Ever since the war on drugs was declared in 1971, Black and Brown people have been disproportionately targeted by a prison industrial system that's fueled by our exploitation. Data and statistics of drug-related arrests is used to justify the passing of oppressive laws, the buildings of more prisons. Millions of lives have been lost, families torn apart, communities destroyed. As a native of Detroit, I survived the destruction of my community firsthand. We not only suffered from the direct effects of the war on drugs, but we also suffered from the massive divestment in our communities. The long-lasting effects of these laws and policies have caused harm and devastation that will last for generations. But with the Eden Network providing the open exchange of data, we can place the power back into the hands of the consumer. Business owners throughout the supply chain can leverage Eden's notary services to make community claims or ethical statements. These notarized claims and statements will then be verified by community leaders or customers that participate on the Eden Network. The people who consume the products and services offered by businesses on the Eden Network will have access to this data. And having access to this data empowers the customer to choose who profits from their consumption. For far too long, data has been used as a weapon to destroy our communities, but now with Eden, we can use it as a tool to heal our communities. And now Christian can tell us a little bit more about what it's going to take to bring this to reality.
Thank you, James. It's very simple. Here we go. See, super simple. Yeah, so you see our pilot roadmap here that we looked at earlier, and essentially it's a look forward about a year, year and a half here up in time. And what we aim to demonstrate with each of these pilots, again, are documented results, real companies involved in producing real value for the community, the growing community around the network. And with the money, we're looking at building publishable reports, some visibility into the network. It's a network, so it takes people to join in. So as people joining the network has more value. We're going to have the open source code that I mentioned, free software that is available for everybody to audit and look at to make sure there's no shenanigan. And libraries that other software companies can use to make their software compatible with Eden and make it easy for them to join in and make their technology compatible with the sharing space. So it's a lot of work, and this is a frugal budget to get there. Getting a couple of good engineers to do good work, quality people to design user interfaces that are intuitive and easy to use and not intrusive. And this is what it gets to gets us started. And with that, I'll give Angela maybe the last few words here.
All right, so to summarize before we take your questions, over the last year, this group has built a large and growing network and designed the structure, mission, and methodologies of the Ethical Data Alliance. We're now at the stage where we're crowdsourcing startup funding. So the big goal is 350, but for right now, we're looking at least 20 to 30 so that we can get ourselves to the next stage of being able to have the network road mapped out through a white paper and being able to hire part-time. We've already got someone picked out, and it's not me, to manage the Ethical Data Alliance part and the smart contracts. The reason all of us have come together and been involved in this all year long is that we believe in the mission. We believe that we can answer all of the big questions in cannabis with data sharing. We believe that we can do it in an equitable, fair, and just way. And we can provide data that assists lawmakers in developing efficient and streamlined regulations that are in the best interest of public health and local economic prosperity. And with that, we thank you all for paying attention. And we will open ourselves up to questions.